Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of Cocktails and Conversation. I am your co host, Heather Holdridge,
And I'm Larry Quinn.
and we are thrilled to be with you on what is the perfect date of the year, which is April 25th. And if you do not know what I'm talking about, go dust off your old, probably a DVD of Miss Congeniality, because that is one of the singular moments of that film, which I watched with my 10-year-old a couple weeks ago. And some of it's a little, ooh, but some of it holds, including the April 25th joke.
Love it. Enjoy it. Don't hate.
Okay. So we have a lot to dig into today. And so we're going to jump right in. And when we were sort of talking about putting this together this week, I was thinking about leading with the positive, which is we've had a week of walkbacks from this administration with Trump kind of getting weaker and losing a little momentum, a little altitude.
Yeah,
But
totally.
unfortunately, and perhaps in response to that, we've seen a couple of things in the last 24 hours that demonstrate the way in which this administration regime, if you will, is doubling down on behavior to try to bring people to heel. So the first thing that broke, and this has actually happened in the last 2 or 3 hours, is that a county judge in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, has been arrested by the FBI and is being
Hannah Dugan.
charged with 2 counts of aiding a so-called alien in evading ICE agents and immigration authorities. Absolutely one of those stunning moments that takes your breath away a little bit.
Boy, should.
Larry, yeah, well, yeah, as it should. I just saw this and this is bonkers. Cash Patel, posted on it on Twitter, and then the
Yeah.
tweet was
No, it's great.
deleted.
Yeah, and look, we're this is centered around like us having cocktails and having this conversation. This is drink worthy, people.
Oh,
So
wait, we didn't even make our drink. We just went right in, and now I'm like, oh my God, I don't have a drink to talk about this. What are we making?
we're making martinis, right? So I know I was just fidgeting in the background, like Heather, I got to drink. I got to drink. You need to stop. So so let Heather get back together. My favorite drink of all time, and this is the one I have when you're reading me my last rites or whatever. I love a martini and made my way, which is with the only way with gin, and Plymouth is my favorite, and Dry Vermouth. I do 3-to-1 ratio for me. Others can do different ratios. It's up to them, but that's my jam. How about you, Heather? Do you
Wow,
have a
that's the super
specific?
majority martini. Is that what you're calling this?
I don't know. I mean, look, if you don't have skunky vermouth, then you can use more.
I'm busting out special blue cheese stuffed olives made in Wisconsin with the cheese from Wisconsin, the great state of Wisconsin. So that's kind of what I'm doing.
And I will have a twist.
Okay, you do that. And I forgot my little thingy.
Okay, but while we're mixing, yeah, no, the judge's arrest is insane. The story is pretty wild. They accuse her of basically redirecting the agents, saying, "Hey, you need to go talk to the head judge because this is not my thing." And then say that then once they left the courtroom, she redirected the individual to leave through another door, and so they left. But fine, whatever. But they are using this event to now arrest her for obstruction of justice, I guess. You say it happened in other countries, not America. Well, it's happening in America.
Correct. I think the other thing that is notable about it, though, too, is it's happening at the end of a week where you have seen mounting losses on the part of this administration from the judiciary, from the federal judiciary. And so they are pushing back and, threatening contempt proceedings, saying, you have to stop proceeding on whatever these executive orders or this policy or that policy or what have you. It's happening across the board. There was another example of a prisoner who had been renditioned to El Salvador, a different individual than Abrego Garcia, who they were saying, no, you need to bring this person back as well. And so those losses are mounting. This feels like an attempt to shift that back and to kind of retake momentum in the executive's war against the judiciary, which is what this is.
I
At
think it's
the
a
end of the day.
combination of things. Also, if if you look at the numbers, right? So part of what's happening that's coming out, Fox News poll, there's a recent YouGov Economist poll. His numbers on the economy are hemorrhaging because they're screwing it up. I think
Yes.
the latest number went from 37% when he started his term of people who say the economy is getting worse to now over 50%, 52%, I think was the number in the YouGov poll. But where they are not hemorrhaging as much is on immigration. So it's a combination of things. They feel like this is an area where they can do things and it helps them in the public eye, as opposed to obviously their cluelessness in what they're screwing up on economics as well. So
Sure. But even on immigration now, he's like, oh, cheers.
oh, it's not great. Cheers. Oh, we need a drink. Yeah, let's drink to that. I mean, everything's getting upside down for Trump. So we should actually toast
Toast to
to
that.
that. Yeah.
Toast to failure, Donald Trump.
And so there and but cornered animal,
Is going to
right?
lash out. But so I agree with that. I thought the other thing that this was in the Bulwark today, and in Adrian Castillo's newsletter, though I think it was not ghost written, but it was guest written today, was around how Trump and his numbers are tanking, and I mean off the cliff with Latinos. So that has been a contested demographic and a voter group for decades back and forth between Republicans and Democrats. Harris only won Latinos overall by 5 points,
Mm-hmm.
and now Trump is at negative 45 with Latinos.
A lot of times white people will think it's about immigration, but often it's just economics. And so
Correct.
it could just be as simple as affects people's everyday stuff. And immigration in the community is a complicated thing depending on whether you're in the border, how many generations folks are in. So it'd be interesting to see what's driving that, but the numbers are bad.
It's
And young
both. It's
people
like
also.
it's yes and right. It's
Yeah.
both. Hey, the economy, everything that you've said. You know Trump is not helping the average person with prices and making their lives easier or better on cost of living. And also, if you are Latino, guess what? Uh, the sense of overreach. Hey, you said you were going to be
Right.
going after criminals, and yet that is not what
Yeah,
is
yeah,
happening.
and now you're talking about homegrown. So like, and what does that mean? Because I don't understand what that means, right? So it is that perspective that if you look a type, there is no they're indiscriminate. I guess we can give them credit for once they go after brown people, they're like not discriminating. They're grabbing every single brown person they can get. So, but yeah, it's because the idea of it's not me they're going after,
Yep.
but in fact, it is indiscriminate. They're talking. Trump is now what I think again talking about. Now we'll talk about homegrown folks as well, which it's a weird phrase. I don't know what that means. I actually it's creepy in a way, and but I think all bets are off for anyone. If they don't
Absolutely.
like you, they'll find a reason. Is
Well,
the
and that's
concern?
the point. It's supposed to be within the context of what people understand to be the rule of law and
No.
also going through due process. If people get arrested, you get to have your day in court. That's the way it works in America. That is not what this administration is doing, and people know it.
And by the way, the due process clause does not say citizen. It
Correct.
says person.
I want to actually turn to what I originally thought we would open today with, which is it has been a week of walkbacks from this administration. And it really started when it
Yes.
was report. Yes, I mean we've these
Another thing to
tariffs.
drink too.
these these tariffs have been going on now since Liberation Day, April 2nd, and things haven't been going so well for the U.S. our economy since then. Also, the world is figuring out ways around us, which we that's maybe it's all also its own separate show because we're not going to see the impact of that for months or even years because this realignment is going to continue. I think even after these tariffs, trade deals get negotiated or, things come back to some semblance of normal. But it really started when you had the CEOs of Walmart, Target, and Home Depot all come in and speak directly to President Trump and say, yeah, you're going to have empty shelves in about 2 weeks,
Yeah,
right?
and Walmart and Home Depot historically not necessarily the most liberal companies at all about these things.
No.
No, it's about the bottom line.
Correct. Correct. And I think this idea of, and I remember this from my childhood where you would see as the Soviet Union was really starting to
Yeah,
collapse, right? You would see, these bread lines and people in line, and you'd see the images of empty shelves, and just
no,
having
just
that.
all out panic. I mean, it was like Americans cannot deal with this. The inventory is already here. So nothing's subject to the tariffs that are already here. But at some point, supplies dwindle and you have to get replenishment. And if those items are being under tariffs, you don't know what's going to come in and what's going to be delivered, and that's where people are going to really start to panic. So yeah, I think some of the capitulation and the retrenchment by Trump is people are coming to him. People who he actually cares about, won't be me, but people he cares about saying, "Hey, you can't do this. You're screwing things up," and they're
Well,
hearing
the unrelenting trade war between us and China in particular, Japan having conversations but no deal coming out of last week, and then Trump threatening to fire the head of the Fed, which is an independent agency.
which he can't
Markets freaked out,
technically.
right? And so
Right.
Trump had to walk that back. They had to talk about de-escalating with China to the point where Trump,
All of it.
as far as I can tell, made up the fact that Xi called him.
But ultimately, I think he will worry about if his pocketbook gets affected, and that's harder for us to have transparency into.
Well, especially when you have stuff like the Trump meme coin, right? But
Oh my God, let's talk about that.
let's actually jump to that. So, the news came out this week. Trump's had a meme coin since what, the day of his inauguration, more or less that weekend, that he was sworn back in for an additional term. So launched his own meme coin. So he said it was going to be the president of most pro crypto president in history, or the crypto president, or whatever. The
Well,
crypto
of
industry was
course. I
super
mean, if you're going to
stoked.
scam people, you got to be into it.
Well, sure, but the thing is, the crypto industry was like, great, because they did not like dealing with the Biden administration. And then what happens? Trump actually lifts up what critics have been saying about crypto all along, which is that it's a scam run by
Because he's like,
hucksters.
if they're scamming and making money, I'm going to create a scam and make money.
I'm just like,
Because I
wait a
mean,
minute. Did you say scam? That's my
exactly.
thing.
Hey,
That's
I cannot believe you left me out. I am very hurt by this, and I'm just going to do my own thing because I
no
was not
one
invited.
scams better than I. No one does it better than me. That's it.
Exactly.
That's it. What did he say? He said that his most
I'm
top
sure. Like,
220 buyers, okay, for
oh
private
yeah,
gala dinner.
of meme coin. So the biggest holders of meme coin.
Yes. Now I don't know this to be for 100% true, but I imagine 220 is roughly what your capacity is in the state dining room, probably in the White House. So, I mean, okay, so number one, but number two, people say, oh, well, this is just your average, it's just a politician being a politician. No, this is way worse than that.
Right. Well,
One,
because they're giving him money, right?
yeah, it's personal. It's not for his campaign. He's
Right. There's
literally
no.
putting it in his pocket. You don't know
Yeah.
how much you have to give him in order
Yes.
to get access.
Oh,
And
Lord have mercy.
Lord have mercy. And I hadn't even known this when I was reading up on this. That regardless of how the meme coin does over time, the meme coin could vanish tomorrow. His family has still collected about $350 million in fees.
This makes no sense, except if what you're doing is buying access, that it's worth it to get in front of him because he'll make a deal, or it is corruption at the highest levels in plain sight.
Correct.
And 300 something million just like that because people want access, and you're selling access, which, I mean, God, if Bill Clinton did this, I mean, he'd be in prison already.
Well, also, I think the other note is it's not disclosable. And so that's why this is so nuts that you actually don't know who's investing in this meme coin.
Right.
It's not
There,
publicly
there are
available.
no public
Correct.
disclosure requirements, and which brings me to something that I wanted to talk about, because you don't know if it's foreign investment, you don't know where the money's coming from, and so very recently, the Trump administration just had an executive order going after ActBlue. For folks who don't know, ActBlue is a large just payment processing platform. It's a donation platform that is used mostly by Democrats, but also by nonprofits to process fundraising dollars. And we won't get into how annoyed you are by the texts and the emails. That's not it. What we do know is like they put out this executive order accusing ActBlue and saying they need to figure out the foreign interference of in elections by donations into via the platform, which again, that is actually publicly disclosed.
Right.
What Trump is doing is not publicly disclosed, but this is a big deal. And let me tell you how big of a deal this is. I think ActBlue has processed billions of dollars, millions and millions of contributions. I think in the executive order they mentioned 200 something donations,
Mhm.
which is like accidental, basically, and irrelevant. But it is an attack on potentially his enemies, the opposition, trying to take down a key part of the infrastructure. It's just an infrastructure piece, how people donate. This administration continues to try to weaponize the government against any and all enemies.
Absolutely, and I think it adds to the arrest of the judge this morning, where this is crossing yet another sort of red line, 5 alarm fire moment where you're seeing a direct attack on political opposition, but it's not going to stop here, right? And this is
No.
one of the things that we just sort of know in terms of the escalation for this administration, but in terms of specific attacks on organizations and institutions, let's talk about the impact of the Trump administration's policies on everyday people. So, a couple of stories caught my eye this week. The first was 3 weeks after the Health and Human Services Department announced that they were laying off
Yes.
20,000 people, and including in that had 3,500 of those people were out of FDA. They had a fact sheet that said, no, this isn't going to impact food safety at
Yeah.
all.
No, not at
Well,
all.
3 weeks later, oops,
Milk.
they are ending their inspection of milk products. 3 weeks later. So,
The way milk freaks me out in a little bit. Milk is just weird. So, like, not inspecting milk
see,
freaks me out. It really does. And it has nothing to do with two young kids who drink milk. I hate milk. But it's like, milk just seems like the thing you should know is okay, because something about it freaks me out. So,
absolutely. Well, also, but no white Russians for you then, I guess.
well, I'll just use cream.
Let's
Heavy cream.
I mean, that's okay. We'll talk a little later about the relationship between milk and cream.
It's all the
Um,
same.
but
Just letting
so
you know.
obviously very concerning and is going to impact everyday families. To your point, children all over America as well as adults. Um, the second thing that sort of caught my eye was I think it was the day after tax filing day. Taxes were due April 15th. The government announced they were ending the Direct File program, which they
Which
had
is
built.
dumb.
Well, I mean, this is the point, right?
I mean,
Um,
and so who's enriched by this? Companies.
TurboTax,
Yeah, exactly.
H&R Block.
All the billions of dollars, by the
Correct.
way.
And it was saving the average person who used it about $140,
Yeah,
right? Now, that might not mean a lot to Donald Trump, but it sure as hell means a lot to people who shouldn't have to pay money in order to file a thing that they are legally required to do,
right.
right?
And and you're about to make everything more expensive for
Right.
because of these stupid tariffs. But he doesn't care. It's
No,
irrelevant.
they don't. But it's just yet another example of where this administration doesn't care about average people. But perhaps the most egregious example, even if it's a limited one, was in Arkansas, which faced devastating storms
Yes.
and people died. Homes were destroyed, and You're talking about a state that voted by 30 points for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
The governor
No, this
is
is
his former
very
press
interesting.
secretary from his first term.
And where I was
And
born.
oh, that's right, you're an Arkansan. And what happened? Uh, the Trump administration denied their request for emergency
Yeah.
disaster relief
The
in
FEMA request was
Arkansas.
denied. It's one thing when he was denying stuff for Washington State because you're like, okay, he's just being an a-hole because it's Washington State. But this is Arkansas, someone who used to work for him. And I think they just, I mean, I'm not convinced it's all Trump too, in the sense that he didn't know what the hell is going on. But there's a philosophical approach here where it's like, well, the government doesn't need to help you if, like, tornadoes hit an area and disaster relief. They don't think it's important.
Well, they've talked about getting rid of FEMA, and I think this is a real good proof point that they're dead serious about it. The problem is that states have to balance their budgets every year.
Right.
There's one exception, I think. The federal government, as we all know, does not. And so if you do not have flexibility in your budget because it has to be balanced, you have this unforeseen natural disaster, that's problematic, right? And
Well, I
so
mean, I'm not going to get into my sort of philosophy on like being able to handle deficits and surpluses and not having to balance the budget I'm about to get into this. But
no,
yes,
don't.
don't do it. But yeah, no, it has real world impacts. The folks in Arkansas who we'll see. I mean, does it change behavior? Because reality is he just said no. And the
Right.
Trump administration just said no after tornadoes hit Arkansas. And it won't be the last time.
No, it will
So
not. We'll see what happens this year. So I want to shift. We got maybe it's we're in a 2-minute rapid fire, which
yeah.
is positive things. So
Oh
I
yeah.
want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing with the growing opposition movement to this administration. And we
Yeah.
have a lot of examples showing up this week, starting with Pete Buttigieg appearing on Andrew Schultz's Flagrant podcast for 3 hours yesterday. Now, people might recognize, if not Andrew Schultz, then Flagrant is one of those podcasts in sort of the brotastic space. They were sort of Trumpy last year, but they're not particularly political. And Pete Buttigieg goes on there for 3 hours, and you know what? These guys kind of were loving on some Pete Buttigieg yesterday, number one. And number two, the clips coming out of this is the point. Attention economy. Pete Buttigieg took it over.
Right. And the thing is, like, he wasn't afraid, and that's the point. The idea that these spaces are one side or the other is not how most people live. People just enjoy the content that they enjoy. And the willingness to just talk to people has been so lost, right? We feel this need to get reinforcement right away. And I think it's really important that Pete Buttigieg or any other folks, and again, it doesn't have to be politicians. It's just anyone who wants to have conversations, get in there. They're not spaces that are anti anything. They're willing to have conversations, willing to listen, and that's what this conversation showed. Right? The point isn't to win the argument that day. The point is to actually have conversations so that people understand that there are differing viewpoints and we're not all enemies.
Exactly. 100%. Hats off to
So
Pete
I thought that was
Buttigieg,
great.
and hopefully demystifying this, right?
Right.
So next up, your alma mater, Harvard,
Yes.
sued the Trump
Yes.
administration this week.
Yeah, I went to a small liberal arts school in Massachusetts.
Stop.
And so really,
Fired.
I've never been afraid of the H bomb. So I went to Harvard, and actually, the thing is, a few weeks ago, I was on a call and I just sort of lost it on the call and say, "Hey, can we just talk about something? Are we going to do something about this?" And because of me, Harvard then decided to step up. I will take full credit for it. But this week, Harvard filed a lawsuit, basically a lawsuit against the Trump administration for trying to freeze the money. And by the way, I do want to clarify for folks, because Harvard is rich. $50 billion is real. This is money for Alzheimer's research, cancer research. And that's what this money is for in terms of the long-term view of the world. And the government has the luxury of doing that. And so Harvard's getting that money not because Harvard's trying to like make the housing nicer, because I can just say that it wasn't that nice. But you want the nerds to be working on this. You do want the nerds at Harvard or the nerds at the University of Texas or nerds at University of Michigan or the nerds at Berkeley or Stanford to be working on these really big problems. And that's where the money is going. But it's money that's going to the nerds who you want to be working on this, trying to figure out really hard shit to make our lives better. And I proud of the university. I we'll see if they keep going because I always have this fear that they're gonna like, oh, try to make a deal. But right now they're standing up and fighting. So cheers to
Well,
Harvard.
we'll see because I do think clearly the administration has made some overtures. Oh, we didn't mean to send the letter. Oh,
Exactly.
like
Oh my
trying
God,
to
it was
back
an
channel
accident.
conversation. But Harvard rightly, I think, understands because this administration demonstrates it over and over again that they need to press on while they have what they perceive to be the advantage,
Right.
because the administration will come at them again. And Harvard, if they can be successful, will hopefully have a chilling effect on this tactic, which is to attack our institutions and our and academia consistently going forward. I actually want to close with a big pop culture moment from this week, which is the return of Andor
I
for the
love it.
second and
Love it.
final season. I didn't watch any of it until like a month ago, and then I binge watched it with my kid. And the season 2 is not disappointing. It is
And
so relevant and important for the moment that we're in.
it's a great show. People should watch it. It's really relevant in these times where you don't want to over do anything with pop culture. But yeah, it is a reflection of what folks are dealing with. So it's a great show. Can't recommend it enough.
Well, so everyone bust out your Andor. My drink is empty and our time has expired. But Larry, I hope you have a great weekend. My blue cheese olives are gone too. And I'll see you next week.
See y'all next week. Thanks.
Bye.